Okay, this is screencast 2.2 for AP Chemistry. We're in the stoichiometry unit, and this is the lab experiment, at least one of the labs that we will be doing. It's called gravimetric analysis of a metal carbonate. Let's take just a few minutes to go over the lab to make sure you understand the basic concepts and get an idea how things are going to roll. All right, so we're going to take an unknown alkali metal carbonate. That means that it's from the group 1, so it might be sodium carbonate, lithium carbonate, things like that. It's not from the alkaline earth metal column, which is the second group. It's not going to be beryllium, magnesium, calcium, etc. Anyhow, we'll take that soluble carbonate and we're going to figure out what it is. The way we're going to do it is by derivatizing it. We're going to turn it into an insoluble product that we can then weigh. And so that's the basic idea. The weight of what you started with and the weight of what you ended up with can be used to identify which alkali metal carbonate you actually had. So this is one of those experiments where you get a mysterious white powder and you figure out what it is. You're told that it's an alkali metal carbonate. You just need to know which group 1 metal you're dealing with. So first thing you want to do is dissolve it in water. Of course, all the group 1s are soluble in water, and when you do that, you should be aware that it will turn into its ions. These ions cannot be purchased on their own. You can't buy a bottle of sodium cation because it needs an anion to go with it, but the closest you can come to that is when you throw things in water, and they do separate into their individual ions. So that's the dissolution balance chemical equation right there. Notice since it's a carbonate, which are -2, you get 2 metal ions per carbonate. And then we're going to add some calcium chloride. This is a smart thing to do because calcium chloride is also soluble in water. The product, which will be the metal chloride, is soluble in water, but the calcium carbonate is insoluble in water, and we can weigh it. We can use those amounts to analyze what the product, starting material, must have been. So the overall reaction is that calcium chloride reacts with the metal carbonate to make calcium carbonate and the metal chloride. The only product is calcium. The only insoluble product is the calcium product, calcium carbonate. And so we filter it, dry it, and weigh it. And you can see that you need to be precise about these things in order to get good results. Okay, so we'll figure out what the alkali metal carbonate is. Here's the materials. Step 1 is we want to make sure that we get a nice accurate mass for the unknown, which is your alkali metal carbonate. And we'll do that by heating it up to make sure it becomes anhydrous to remove all the water. We'll repeat it. We can get an average mass, and you should have a nice, accurate mass for your unknown. We'll then do the precipitation reaction where we add the calcium chloride. It should precipitate out the calcium carbonate. That's the same product for everybody, but you will get different amounts depending on what you started with, since these react in a certain molarity method. And I want you to take a nice close look at this for the balanced chemical equation to see if we are dealing with a 1-to-1 ratio. To give some thought as to how the stoichiometry of this reaction is important. Okay, and now we just fill in the data table, and this should be no problem. Some of this data is more important than others. Please mark down any observations that might help account for, especially for any errors that might crop up while you're doing this. We'll be using vacuum filtration to filter out the insoluble material, which takes place a lot quicker than other more time-consuming methods. And then you answer this series of questions and hand in your lab report. These questions are designed to lead you down the garden path to help understanding what's going on. So if you're a little worried about, oh boy, how does this stoichiometry, am I going to be off by a factor of 2, things like that, answer each of these questions and it should help you go. It's not till you get to question 10, what is the identity of the unknown alkali metal carbonate? That is the fundamental answer to the mystery of this lab. You should be able to know by then what it was and why. Answer potential sources in terms of errors. These are emphasized because AP Chemistry likes to ask these types of questions. What would have happened if you used 3 grams rather than 2 by accident? How would this affect the result? And usually you have to do a sort of less more series. Less of this would result in more of this because blah, blah, blah. And so this is the lab report. This is what you need to do for analysis of a metal carbonate.